Hello everyone, Zhanhu here. I'm speaking to you important tier chart you might want to know if you're going to be playing For Honor in the near future. No, this is a year for season 4 of it's the season where Gryphon came out, Mayhem. During the event, one of the events actually, I believe a new event came out recently. Anyways, as you can see, we have an important tier alignment chart of whether they are grapefruit, not grapefruit, and if they are grapefruit or not grapefruit, if they are sesame chicken or not sesame chicken. This is very important when you need to play For Honor because of the coefficient of sesame chicken, which you always need to kick into account when playing, and that's based off how much of grapefruit you are and how much of sesame chicken you are. Both those variables are in there, and that will improve your gameplay if you can master that equation and calculate that during your gameplay. Anyways, let's get started. So Black Prior, okay, one thing to keep in mind is that he has a very low sesame chicken value, so you have to make sure you compensate with grapefruit if you're going to be calculating his equation. So that's why he has to go here, if you're how much of grapefruit he is, of course. But he's not really sesame chicken. Nobushi, you see, Nobushi has like a light attack, and that makes her overpowered, so we have to put her in the sesame chicken category. But, very important, not a grapefruit. If you say it's a grapefruit, then that's where you get Kensei. What? Yeah, I said Centurion. And Kensei, I suppose. But we'll get to it later. But the problem is that with Centurion, he has heavy attacks and light attacks, which also makes him overpowered. And I know Nobushi has heavy attacks, but Centurion has the heavy attacks. And that's what makes him grapefruit and sesame chicken at the same time. And Nobushi's not grapefruit, but sesame chicken. Conqueror has blocking, and blocking definitely makes him overpowered. So he's definitely not either of them. He doesn't really need either of them because he can block. But he's a bit more centrist. He's not like completely not. You still want to take them into consideration. You just don't really have to use them, and you don't have to. Now, Gladiator is tricky because when he stabs your toes, that's like him consuming your toenails through his weapon into his arm, into his stomach. So that makes him definitely very sesame chicken. But you have to take into account the coefficient of coolness, and there's something off about Gladiator, you might say. And that's because, it's because when Gladiator does his toe stab, he actually only does 9 damage. It used to be 10, but now it's 9. So that kind of makes the coefficient of coolness very low. So that's why he's not really a grapefruit, but not to the extent of Nobushi. Shugoki is very interesting because, alright, Hitokiri is very interesting because Hitokiri has a big axe. And using that weapon, she's able to attack people with heavy attacks and light attacks with the hyper armor finisher light, as well as a kick, because that's the most important part of a weapon. So that makes her have a really high grapefruit coefficient value. But you have to make sure that you do not include too much sesame chicken, but just enough. So it's the balance, you see, it's like on the line. A bit lower, but effectively on the line. You can get away with a little bit higher if it's a margin of error, of course. See, Highlander is very interesting because he has 2 stances. He has the defensive stance, and he's got the offensive stance. And the offensive stance is offensive. And that makes him very not safe for grapefruiting, but very strong at sesame chicken. He's the extreme in that direction. And that's where Highlander is. But then, you also have to remember, when you have a Jiang Jun, that's the next hero, of course, you have to remember that he has a long beard as a default thing, his default costume. But he sometimes doesn't have a long beard in his other costumes. And when he does the choke, you might notice that the animation actually is the perfect value for sesame chicken, which makes him extremely good at calculating the sesame chicken, the way it fluctuates in physics and stuff is what I'm talking about. So that's why he's got a good sesame chicken. You always know it. Very easy. He's always pretty balanced. Although it has slight fluctuation. That's the main unique part about Jiang Jun's kit. Is like it's slight fluctuation in sesame chicken. So he's kind of like he can be here, he can be here. Effectively, if you guess around here, you should be right. If you can get that, you should be right most of the time. Jormungandr has bash. And that bash can be used to push opponents away and drain their stamina. So, because of that, his hammer, very good at hitting Sesame Chicken. If you hit Sesame Chicken with a hammer, that's going to be pretty painful for Sesame Chicken. So, that's why he's definitely got a decent, not Sesame Chicken value. But, not that much grapefruit either. kind of like Conqueror. You expect to have a grapefruit because when he hits you with the hammer, you think, "Oh, it's a hammer." I immediately associate hammers with sesame chicken and grapefruit, but no. You have to have different senses when you're playing For Honor. It's a different game than a lot of other games out there. Because a lot of other games, you would be able to get away with taking a Warhammer and turning that into association of sesame chicken and grapefruit. In reality, it's the opposite. Now, like I said with Centurion, Kensei is very interesting because he is grapefruit and sesame chicken. But not too much. Although, but a bit more Centurion. You're going to have to plug in some crazy numbers to get for him sometimes. Because it's kind of actually... Because the thing about Kensei is that when they reworked them, his sesame chicken value became a decimal of... I don't remember the whole number, but I remember it's about 0.6289999 as the decimal. And you have to calculate, you have to remember to make sure you calculate it exactly, or it's not going to work. So this makes them very hard to calculate the sesame chicken coefficient for. Lawbringer. Thing about Lawbringer is that he has a halberd, and halberds on the other end of them typically have some sort of like... What? No. I'm thinking the wrong thing. He has a poleaxe. Now, a poleaxe that has a hammer at the other end. And that also kind of has the same association with Jormungandr. And that puts him down below. Aramusha. Yeah, the thing about Aramusha is that he can't be good on any list no matter what. So, and the thing about Nuxia is that Nuxia has traps. It's always a trap to think that Nuxia will have a high grapefruit value because, mind you, of the heavy attack finisher from the left side. You have to make sure you look at that very closely and you realize that makes her have a high grapefruit value, but a low sesame chicken value on the likes of Blackfire. Orochi is very interesting because since he can he can press WASD moving around and guard move, and that makes him very overpowered. Which is why he has extreme grapefruit value and potential, but horrible sesame chicken value. He's the extreme in this direction. We got 4 extremes everywhere, and you can see that all 4 heroes represent like a rectangle, and that rectangle encompasses all the other heroes, because these are like the the quad. This squad of heroes. If you want to compensate perfectly in every single game for your sesame chicken coefficient, you're going to have these. Of course, the matchup isn't good for other things in For Honor, but it's the best possible to get in this. Of course, it's always important to have a balance between all of them. Example, if I were to take these 4 heroes, that would create a pretty decent rectangle of sesame chicken coefficients. So you have to keep that in mind when you're making team composition. Although there are a lot of things that you might want to prioritize over that. Peacekeeper. See, Peacekeeper also can't be good at anything, so we have to put her down there. Raider. So the thing about Raider is that he has, he could take this heavy, and then it goes into a top attack. And it was crazy. So that makes him have pretty decent grapefruit value, but not on the likes of Hitokiri or Orochi or Shugoki, mind you. Because he also has a second left heavy attack. You have to remember, that pulls down the grapefruit value from the top, and decreases his sesame chicken value to put him here. Think about Shaman, our next hero in the list, is that when she performs her second top heavy, you have to remember that Shaman is a unique character in that it fluctuates only specifically on that heavy to be a lot lower than it should be. So Shaman's actually in the middle, completely in the middle, but could be extremely sesame chicken in the context that she's doing that heavy attack. You just gotta keep that in mind. I've died many times because of that, personally. Shaolin is a very interesting character because he has every attack in the game. He has a light attack and a heavy attack. Crazy. No other character has that. And that makes him kind of not a grapefruit, but not really, but a bit of sesame chicken. Shinobi was one of the first, it's like the first hero to come out after release alongside Centurion. He was a Japanese samurai hero that came out. So when he came out, you had to realize that Shinobi has a dodge kick, and that dodge kick can be utilized to generate more grapefruit for your teammates. And that's a very strong thing. That's why he was so overpowered for a bit, even though a lot of people thought otherwise. It was only because of his grapefruit generating potential. He's the king of grapefruit, and he's about average sesame chicken. You're going to want to have someone in good sesame chicken range to compensate for him. And that's why we bring Tiandi. Tiandi's like Shinobi. In fact, he's a Sesame Chicken generator, but it's not really as useful in the meta to generate Sesame Chicken coefficients. Sesame Chicken values, sorry. So that's why he wasn't as prominent. But he's still disorganized. Assuming that the enemy team is disorganized, him generating more Sesame Chicken values will be very strong. So that's why he goes up here. Now, Valkyrie. The thing about Valkyrie is that Valkyrie has a light attack. And that instantly puts her down here. And the thing about Warden is that he has a shoulder bash. And a shoulder bash can be used to bash opponents and knock them back. And then he guarantees 2 lights. One of which is a combo light that does less damage, but both come together for a slightly above average light attack. So that's very interesting, because that increases the Sesame Chicken value tenfold from what it would be. But the thing is, it's not hard to improve on garbage, so he's only like here. And that's 10 times. And he's about average on grapefruit. Warlord is a very interesting character because he manages to get away with not being Sesame Chicken at all. Like, you know, you're not going to Sesame Chicken a Warlord. Like, oh my, I don't even know who would ever do that. That'd be like the most off-meta thing ever. It doesn't even work, you know. So that's why you just don't want to do it. You just don't want to do it. It's so off-meta. You're just going to die. You're just going to instantly have 25 Warmonger tier 1. You're just going to have Warmonger tier 1 feat applied to the entire game because no one wants to be with you. Because you try to increase your Sesame Chicken value as Warlord. Like, no. And on Grapefruit, he's above average. He's like a bit more pro Grapefruit. He's like one of the higher ones. You definitely don't want to be having Sesame Chicken coefficients with him, though. Just because it's so low. Just saying, this bottom line does not mean equals 0. This is just a very low value. Less than 0.01. Wait. No. It's like less than. It's like less than like. It's less than 10. It's less than 10. Similar ratio though. What I was thinking. Because they can't have decimal values. Only Kensei can. So the thing about Warmonger is that Warmonger is kind of like Warden in the fact that she has a bit of Sesame Chicken and a kind of averagey grapefruit. But you have to remember that Warmonger has her first feat, and do you know what that does? That corrupts the Sesame Chicken. You expire the Sesame Chicken. It tastes horrible now. It's like mold growing out of it. It's like mold within the mold. Like, what have you done? You go down there. You stay down there forever. How did you even do that? You could have been decent. You could have been up there with everyone else. But you had to ruin everything because you decided to bring around your 4 feet. Your first feet and your 4 feet. That single-handedly completely remove you from the entire meta of the Grapefruit Sesame Chicken coefficient of Sesame Chicken. Berserker. Yeah, Berserker, he's pretty right. He has axes. He could chop up the Sesame Chicken. Pretty good. But as for the Grapefruit, he's a bit of a niche pick because he has Grapefruit eosis and he's allergic to grapefruit. So he's like here. Zhanhu. Here. Zhanhu. Zhanhu has an unblockable light attack, and that attack can be used to chop up Sesame Chicken like nothing. Like, the Sesame Chicken can't even block the light attack. That's how crazy it is. So, using that information, you could safely conclude that he has a good Sesame Chicken value. Maybe around that Berserker, like, it's above average. But Zhanhu, single-handedly the most OP in the grapefruit category, because he's over here. Like, only Shugoki rivals him. And Shugoki is Shugoki with his 2-second recovery time. Zhanhu does not have 2-second recovery time hook. And that makes Zhanhu insane to the grapefruit value. Because the grapefruit value has a relation with if you have a 2-second recovery, then it goes into effect. If you don't, it doesn't do anything. So yeah, that's where Shugoki gets penalized. That's why he's not insta-meta for having Sesame Chicken and grapefruit to the max. Okay, so we got Warmonger again. And we got Gryphon. Good new hero this season. Year 4, Season 4 Mayhem. Holding cross in the skies, Bardish wielding... Bardish? I don't know. Wielding warrior as a kick. Could double chain lights. Stilled everyone's moves, but actually has a reason for it, unlike Warmonger. And yeah, no. Gryphon, you saw, like, he's learned the ways of, like, the Sesame Chicken Gryphon. Like, he's like someone that's gone from not really being a sesame chicken and grapefruit person up to a very, very deep good. He's accomplished a lot. He's out of everyone here, Gryphon's put in the most work into improving his grapefruit and sesame chicken values. I commend him for that, honestly, because he's put in a lot of work. He's suffered a lot to get to this point, honestly. So that's why Gryphon goes up here. All right, hope you enjoyed. That was the grapefruit sesame chicken tier spectrum chart thing. Yeah, and yeah, tell me what you think. I think I have statistical and mathematical evidence for my claims, but perhaps if I fault or some other way of thinking about it, maybe the equation slightly different if new discoveries in the future, maybe this would change. But now as a year 4 season 4, this is probably the closest you get to an official grapefruit sesame chicken tier spectrum. Grapefruit, I'll call it a sesame chicken coefficient tier list. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Farewell.